All right. Just going to get this set up. I'm not loving the position there. That looks a little better. Okay. We're going to get into the podcast in a minute. I'm excited for this one. Just waiting for one more stream to turn on. Oh, give me 1 second, everybody. Apologize. Instagram is being difficult. Trying to get live everywhere. Okay. Still being a little weird. But we are planning on getting started very quickly here. Just trying to, okay, there we go. We got the other one live. Just got to plug in. Probably should have done all that before I actually started the live. But either way, we're here, we're ready, and we're going to be getting into the show in just a moment. Now today, first I wanted to say I apologize for my voice if it's a little bit off. It is incredibly smoky here in Calgary, and I'm feeling that in the lungs, in all of that good stuff. So hopefully it doesn't cause too much problem. But if I am coughing a little bit during the episode, I apologize for that. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is asking a very important question. Where is the hole in your armor? And I'm going to get into the show very quickly. So let's get going. But before we do, as you tune into the show, make sure you're sharing this around with a friend, with a teammate, with a coach, with somebody else who's going to need to hear this message. Because again, we're here to help athletes level up in every area of their game, every area of their sport, and in turn, help put the best foot forward into competition each and every time. Now, let's get going into the show, and then I'll talk you through exactly what we're doing here today, exactly why we're talking about this, and all that good stuff. So let's go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we are going to be asking a very important question, and that is, where is the hole in your armor? Morning. Thanks for joining. So the reason that I wanted to bring this one to you guys today is because I had a great conversation with an athlete on the weekend, and he was talking about struggles with confidence. He's had a couple of issues in his, competitions recently. And so he was struggling a lot with confidence. He was saying, training wise, he's doing all the right things. He knows that he's in shape. He knows that he's putting the work in, he's putting the time and he's putting the effort in, but he still just had those visions in his head of himself losing when he stepped into the ring again. And so we talked a lot about where confidence comes from, how to better develop it. And in turn, we talked about what he needs to be doing to ensure that he is actually able to come into his next competition confident again and able to put his best foot forward like we always try to do. Now, one of the main questions that I asked him, which is what we're going to be breaking down today, is where is the hole in the armor? So what I mean when I say that is that if you are training every day, you're doing all your regular training, you're working hard, you're eating well, you're recovering well, and you still don't have that confidence you need to step into the ring or the cage at your best, then there's a hole in the armor somewhere. And that is what you need to find. Now, everybody's is in different places, but we all have them. And so, for this individual, as an example, training schedule was on point, nutrition was consistently improving, recovery was doing well, but the hole in the armor is the mindset. And so if the hole in the armor is the mindset, instead of just, I'm going to work harder until I'm more confident in myself, you need to put direct work into improving your mindset. Now, that hole can be in other places too. And honestly, I don't think there's one perfect way to see exactly where the hole is and fix it, but it's just always looking for the next one, which is going to be the key. So with this athlete, in this conversation, what we talked about is, asking him some questions about his training, asking him some questions about his nutrition, about all the other areas of his game. And he was saying, no, I'm really confident there. I know that I'm coming in shape. I know that my skill set's on point. I know that the things I'm doing are right. But I just have these visions in my head of every time I step in, I'm going to lose. And so the advice that I gave him was spend time focusing on that. Spend time focusing on putting better images of competition in your head and legitimately make that part of your training. Because right now, that's where the weakness is. If your training's already on point and you're already in great shape and you're already eating well, I'm not saying you can't continue to improve those things. Of course, always work on trying to improve everywhere, but find the weak point. And if the weak point is your mindset, don't think I'm just going to work harder and then magically feel better about myself. Start to focus on how to actually improve that. Because if all you're focused on is I'm going to work hard and then magically I'll feel better about myself, you won't, because you're already working hard and you're already not feeling better about yourself. So there's no magic level of once I put in this amount of hard work, the self-doubt's going to go away. You need to do that difficult internal work on improving your self-belief. So again, that whole comes up in different places. It's not going to be the exact same for everybody. But if you're sitting here right now as an athlete and you're sitting here thinking, man, I'm just not confident in myself when I step into competition, that's the question you've got to ask yourself. What is the hole in the armor? And for a lot of athletes, they're putting work in, but they're doing the wrong shit. So they're not feeling the results when they actually step into competition. So the problem for you is the training that you're doing. Even if you're training every day, if you step into a 5-round fight and you gas out in the second round, I don't care that you're training every day. It's not fucking working. So you need to figure out what you are doing incorrectly and how to fix it. So the same idea, if you're training every day and you're confident, you're like, yeah, my training is on point. Everything's really good. It's all based on science. It's all, doing the right things at the right times. I've researched it. I've hired coaches. I'm improving it all the time. And you're still feeling like the results not coming through in the sport, then maybe it's your nutrition. Maybe it's the way you're cutting weight. Maybe it's your recovery. Maybe it's your mindset. Like there's always a hole in the armor. No matter how well you're doing, there's always a next step. There's always something to fix. So again, coming back to this athlete, coming back to this conversation, because this one was really intriguing. Again, so basically to lay it out, this guy is coming off a couple of losses and was struggling a lot with his self-belief. He was working really hard every day, doing all the right things, knowing that he was doing all the right things, but still struggled feeling like he was going to lose every time he stepped into competition. And so we had that discussion and I told him, we need specific time that you're working on your mindset every day. Because that is the one unlock. If you are not confident that you're going to win, even though you're doing the right work, then more of the right work isn't going to fix the problem. More work overall isn't going to fix the problem. Changing up the work you're doing isn't going to make sense because you're doing the right work. What you need is to switch it up here. And for anybody that's listening back to this on the replay, that was me tapping my temples. So switch it up in the mind. And so when it comes to, if you're listening to this and you're thinking that your biggest hole in the armor right now is the mindset too, simple things are going to be massive in improving that. So one of the biggest things that I've started using that's been huge for me, one of the things that I've started using is self-affirmations and a journal every day. And that journal is really simple because self-belief was a huge problem for me for a long time too. And, I remember the first time I worked with a professional athlete in the gym, I couldn't sleep the night before because I was so worried that I was going to get exposed as not knowing what I was doing. And then a guy I used to work with in the morning reminded me, he was like, yeah, that guy's the expert in the boxing ring, but you're the expert in here. You know exactly what the fuck you're doing and you're fine. So go coach him the same way as you would coach anyone else. Just because he's a pro doesn't mean that you don't know how to help him. And I realized, oh shit, that's right. That whole time that he's been building a boxing career, I've been building a strength and conditioning career. So I was the pro, but even though I was the pro and I knew that I had the expertise, I wasn't confident in my ability to help this guy because he was at a higher level than anyone that I had worked with before. But just by, first of all, repeating the action, so working with that same athlete more often, and second of all, reaffirming the actions. So every session that I had with him, all I would repeat to myself afterwards was, I made a difference today. I helped today. Every time he would send me something back saying, man, great session. And it just I felt so good. And, my body just feels awesome. I would save those screenshots so that I could repeat to myself, see, even at the pro level, I know how to help these athletes, because self-belief was a difficulty for me. And the more and more I repeated those actions, as silly as they might sound to you, the more I started to realize how I was able to actually affect these people, how I was able to actually help these people. And in turn, the more confident I became. Now I know, I don't care who you are. You walk into my gym, I can help you improve. You work with me online, I can help you improve. Guaranteed, 100%. I've got you. But that confidence came from repeating the actions and reinforcing that confidence within myself. Every time I have negative thoughts, I always consciously replace them with a positive thought. Excuse me. One of the biggest ones that I still struggle with right now is self-talk. And this is something that I know a lot of athletes struggle with too, because I see it in my gym. Less now so than I used to, which I'm very glad to see, but I see it in my gym. I have athletes all the time that, they'll mess up on a lift or something like that. Oh man, I'm a fucking loser. It's like, no, man, you're learning something new and you messed it up. That happens to literally everybody. But the more you reinforce, oh, I'm a fucking loser, the more you're going to feel like a fucking loser. And that was something that I struggled with for a long time too. So as silly as it sounds, every time I have a thought like that, I consciously replace it with a positive thought. Something as silly as like, I lose my keys like 4 times a week, sometimes somewhere in my apartment, constantly. And every time it happens, my first instinct is to go into that negative self-talk. Oh, I'm a fucking loser. I'm an idiot. How can I fucking keep track of my, like, I always go into that. And immediately I stop myself and I have to replace it with a positive thought. But that is me fixing the hole in the armor. That's not me just accepting the fact that, I speak to myself negatively. That's me actively working on fixing the problem. And this is what so many of you guys overlook. This is what so many of you guys forget to do. You have this issue in your game. As an example, there are some fighters that they've got that knockout power in the first round. If you survive the first round with them, they start to gas out. But instead of fixing that gas tank and actually building up a gas tank that's going to hold for three to 5 rounds or however long they need to go, they just focus on trying to knock people out in the first round. But why would you accept that massive limitation on your game? Why would you accept that, oh, I'm just the kind of guy that if I don't get you out of there in the first, then I'm probably pretty screwed. Like, if you're trying to make it to the top level, you can't have that massive limitation on your game. You just can't. And so by actively focusing on fixing the hole in the armor, you're going to put a better version of yourself into competition every single time. I guarantee it. So with this athlete that I was talking about, the whole is the mindset, because, we talked through all the other areas and the other areas were on point or continuing to improve, yet the negative visions were still there. So for you guys as well, my challenge for you as we get to the end of the episode here, my challenge for you is start asking yourself where that hole is. Start reviewing every area of your game that you need to succeed at the level you want to succeed at. Whether that's, world championship levels, whether you're looking at, amateur titles, whatever level you are looking at right now as the next level for me, the level I want to succeed at, the level I want to get to, start asking yourself, what right now is preventing me from getting there? Is it mentally me actually seeing myself there? Is it something about how I'm training? Is it something about how I'm recovering? Is it something about how I'm eating? And there might not be something that jumps off the page at you. Everything you're doing might be pretty good. But remember, as you continue to move up to higher levels, pretty good isn't enough, because you're going up against the best people. And if you're going up against the best people, pretty good isn't going to cut it. So you need to ask yourself, how do I go from pretty good to pretty great? How do I go from pretty great to great? How do I go from great to the fucking best that I can possibly be? And if you can do that, you're going to consistently be finding the next steps forward in your career. But if you sit and accept the limitation, oh, I just don't have a good gas tank. Oh, I just, I have bad visions of myself losing when I step into the sport. Oh, I just talk to myself because I'm a fucking loser. I talk to myself like a fucking loser. Oh, just don't have a good diet. I just don't like eating healthy. It's like all of these things that I hear people say. Oh, I just don't like strength training, so I don't do it. It's like fucking tough shit. Like, if you accept that limitation, you are putting a cap on how high you can climb in your career. But if you take that same limitation, oh, I just don't like eating healthy, figure out what healthy food you like to eat. Because if you are fueling your body properly, you are going to get more out of your training. And if you get more out of your training, you're going to be a better athlete going into competition. Oh, I just don't like strength training, so I don't do it. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, it is a crucial area of your training. And if you just accept that, oh, well, I don't, I'm not motivated, so I don't go, then you're basically saying, well, I'm not motivated to strength train, so I don't give a shit if I actually make it in this career or not. It's like, think about it that way, right? Instead of just saying, oh, I just have a bad gas tank, so I got to get them out of there in the first. What you're essentially saying is, hey, I don't give a shit how far I go. I don't give a shit how well I do. I'm just going to accept the fact that there's this giant hole in my game, and I'm not going to do anything about it. So my challenge for you is start asking yourself, to succeed at the level you want, what do you need in place? A good training system, good nutrition, good recovery, good mindset. What else on top of that do you need in place? And what is your biggest weakness? What is the hole in the armor? What area do you struggle in the most? And if you can answer that question, then the next question for you, come back to it, the next question for you is, what can I do today to start working on fixing that? Coming back to the example I gave about myself with the negative self-talk, calling myself an idiot and a loser and all that every time I would do something stupid, like forget where I put my keys. The action that I took to start fixing that problem is every time I have that negative self-talk, every time I say something negative to myself like that, I consciously replace it with something positive. It sounds silly, but it works. I do that to myself way less now. And as I do that to myself less, some of you might be thinking, who cares? You're still, going on and living life the same way. But it changes how you approach your life. When you don't have that same limitation on yourself, it changes how you approach your life. I'm more confident in everything I do. I speak to other people at a higher level. The athletes that I work with get better results. Everything I do gets better because I've made that switch. So what area are you slacking in? What area do you need work in? And what is one action step that you can take in order to fix the problem? Because if you can find that one action step, that is going to be the next thing to help break you through to that next level. Then one more action step, one more level, one more action step, one more level, and up and up and up like that until you are unrecognizable compared to where you're at right now. So that is it. That is all. I appreciate you all for tuning in, especially if you got this far. Thank you very much. As always, my one ask of you is, if you got value from the show today, make sure you share it with a friend, share it with a teammate, share it with a coach, share it with someone that needs to hear this message. So thank you again. I appreciate you. Have a great day, and we'll talk again soon. All right. I'm going to go through a couple of comments and questions and stuff. I see some comments coming in here. Donovan, eating enough and eating healthy. I used to have an amazing diet since I moved to California, relying on free food. Yeah, man. And honestly, that kind of thing is difficult to deal with, especially when it's, financial thing when it comes to like being away at school. I know your situation, you're off at school right now. So yeah, action step that you can take, seeking free or cheap food that are nutritional, 100%. Like, I remember when I moved to Calgary, I was working a job that literally paid me nothing. Like, I made $0.00 an hour, and I had to build up my own clientele. And my bank account was literally just in a nosedive for like 4 months until I finally figured out how to actually bring in some clients. And I had my grocery bill, like, to put it into perspective, at the time I weighed 205 pounds. And I trained 4 to 5 times a week. I had my grocery bill down to $37 a week. I was eating lentils. I was eating frozen vegetables. I was buying minute rice. Like I had like, it was not super appetizing. I'm not going to lie to you. Canned tuna. Like I was eating the cheapest, just like bottom of the barrel stuff that was actually nutritious that I could. And it's like, it's not easy to do. I'm not going to tell you that, it's super fun, but those are the steps, right? And even if right now, let's say you're at like 30%, if you can bring that up to 50, that's an action step forward. 50 to 60, 60 to 70, and then keep trying to take one step forward, right? So I love that you're taking the action step towards it. Absolutely, absolutely great way to go, man. Let's see, we got a couple of other notes or questions or anything. Gorilla Monkey Man. My man, I appreciate you coming on. If you're still here, just drop me a quick comment because, yeah, I can absolutely take a second and have a quick chat about that too. Guy coming on asking about, perfect. I don't know how to add you to a live. I'm not sure how to add you to a live. If you know how to do that, let me know and I will absolutely do it. And I'm more than happy to have a quick chat about that. Anybody else that's here right now knows how to add someone to a live, guys got a question for me that I think would be interesting and valuable for a lot of people. But basically he's asking about George St. Pierre preferring sport specific over traditional lifts. For example, like a lunge coming into a push kick over a lunge with a jump. Now, the thing with something like that is because you're doing your sport specific training, like you're already, especially as combat athletes, like you guys are already throwing so many punches, so many kicks, doing so much grappling that adding in that kind of stuff on top of what you're doing already in the gym, honestly, to me feels like overkill, because if you're doing a lunge coming into a push kick, what I see there is you're not going to be hitting that push kick with, proper effective technique because you're adding in different movements that aren't necessarily specific to the sport. So the way I view strength and conditioning is we're not building a fighter. We're not building, an MMA fighter, a boxer, a kickboxer, whatever. We're building a better athlete, someone who's stronger, more explosive, faster, all of those things. And then as you build those physical qualities, improve your speed, your strength, your power, etc., you're able to execute those techniques at a higher level. Does that make sense? So it's not about trying to make your strength and conditioning look exactly like your sport. It's about building the structure behind the techniques that you need to use. And so I would be curious to know what GSP's methods are. If I'm honest, I haven't seen a lot of like him doing sport specific lifts, as you put it. But that's my view on it, is you're already doing the sport enough. And especially with like the level that you're, if you're training 4, 5, 6 days a week and you're doing 2 hours a day of skill stuff, trying to add more in, but mixing it with strength and conditioning is going to take away from the technique and take away from, the power and the speed behind the techniques. Whereas if you just focus your strength and conditioning time in on being stronger, being more powerful, being faster, improving all the physical qualities, then from there, what's going to happen is you've got a stronger structure, your body's built up better, and then you're able to execute those techniques at a higher rate. That makes a lot more sense. Good. Yeah, man. And again, I'm not going to say that GSP's wrong. I don't know enough about what he's doing, but that's just my view on that kind of stuff. It's like punching with dumbbells, right? People think that if I hold a dumbbell in my hand and throw punches, I'm going to get faster. But all it really does is teach you to throw a punch and then drop your hand. And then you're not actually getting faster just by holding a weight. You get faster when your hips are stronger, your hamstrings are stronger, and you've got more power to actually throw behind the punch, right? That's when your power and your speed's going to improve, not just by holding a weight and doing this a lot. Like, yeah, exactly. S&C. So for anybody that's not on the TikTok stream, basically what he just came through with is S&C is for building a better athletic foundation for you to do the sport specific movements better, which is exactly right. And you nailed it on the head with that one. Absolutely. That makes more sense because it's like, yeah, exactly. That's the perfect way to put it. Anyways, guys, I've got to run. I appreciate the questions coming through. My goal, I'm up here 5 days a week. My goal is to keep it very consistent at this time moving forward. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow. Peace and love. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Appreciate you coming on and asking that, man. Yeah. And then any other questions you got too, make sure to drop me a DM. I'm always more than happy to answer those. So yeah, I appreciate you a lot.